So we do want to welcome everyone to our call today. So excited to be able to do this. We've been each and every month be able to have the opportunity to just dive into some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, some of the big topics that we focus in as business leaders as we try to lead our organizations, our businesses through this incredibly different time, challenging time, and it's going to be another, I think, really exciting, compelling topic. Last month, you had to put up with my two business partners who dove in on a great conversation. Today, we've got some really quality people who are going to be leading our conversation. Yeah, I know, James, that's you. But it is going to be great to have. We've got James Baker, who leads Keynote search. James and his team, both here in Ottawa as well as in Toronto and elsewhere, have been helping organizations find the right talent to sustain their operations in the short term and position them for success over the long term. And we also have Sueling, Ching, who is the executive director of the Ottawa Board of Trade, the CEO, I should say, of the Ottawa Board of Trade. And she has been at the forefront of sustaining and positioning the success of certainly Ottawa businesses during this pandemic. I think two of the best people to have on a call where we are looking at some of the challenges that we face when it comes to finding and keeping the right talent, to have the people in our teams. It's been incredible to see how much has changed over the course of this last year, and we are coming up on really just what I think it's a month today. Was when the first lockdown started, certainly here for Ontario, was March 17th or March 16th. It was right around there anyway. But so much has gone on, and we have seen even in our organizations, the star of our organizations has been the people needing to adapt, needing to change, needing to rethink and reposition how they went about doing the things that we need them to do in order for us to be successful. There has been a season where we have seen, in some cases, some incredible resilience. We've seen incredible endurance, and we've seen people in our organizations just rise to the top, almost in ways that, for some of us, has surprised us at how they have taken on the challenges that COVID has faced. And then we've seen others that have surprised us because they haven't been able to step up, or they've really found this to be a season where they pulled back and they haven't played the same kind of a role that we were anticipating them to play. And in some cases, in some people, this has been a time of them really reevaluating their own careers and livelihoods. And so as we begin to come to this place of where we're opening the doors in some way, and again, wherever we go, but over the course of the next 6 months, 7 months, to see things start to really shift, we are going to be having to evaluate and figure out exactly what we need to do when it comes to our teams and our staffing and how we approach that. What I want to do is I'm going to just kind of turn it over, and maybe James, I'll start with you, but maybe just as an opening kind of thought or conversation, what have you seen that has probably been some of the most surprising changes that have happened, or that you've seen so far when it comes to the business landscape, not only here in Ottawa, but even beyond Ottawa?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's been a strange year where so much has changed, but so little has also changed. I mean, we came into 2020 with this talent shortage, and we're in 2021, and we still have a talent shortage. What's changed is the way that a lot of employees are looking at their employment. You're not spending as much time working alongside people. I mean, look at you guys at Rapster. You don't work alongside each other, so your culture shifts in the way that you communicate, the way that you work together. That's the same for businesses. You know, we've, over the course of the last year, we've worked with about 150, 200 organizations, and candidates are asking us different sequence of questions. It used to be, how great a company are they? Tell me about all the wonderful things. It starts with security. You know, how are they doing? What's the long-term future look like? Do they have the financial resources? How did they treat their employees during the downturn? You know, so they're looking for that safety net. Then it's a lot more focus on what they're actually going to be doing day to day. You know, and I've said this before to others, but people used to be okay doing an okay job if they had great people around them, whereas now they don't have those people immediately around them. So the impact of what they do from 9 to 5 is far more important to them. So a lot more people questioning the roles and responsibilities they're taking on. And, you know, from there, it's then, you know, how does the culture adapt, and kind of how do you build a culture with a virtual, remote, or even a blended workforce that might be doing kind of a balance of both as well. So lots of questions, but some huge pressures on the workforce, which I'm sure we'll get into as well, particularly around some of the subsets of the employment market, which are seeing some huge pressure points.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll unpack some of those, and I think those are some great questions. Sueling, I'm going to go to you in a second and just ask you that same question. What are some of the things that you're seeing? I meant to say at the beginning of our call, and I realized that I forgot to, is do want to encourage you both in the, if you're on the Zoom call, feel free to use the chat window. If you haven't opened that up, open that up. If you've got some comments or questions, you can throw them in there and we'll certainly address those. And then also for those of you that are watching live on Facebook, we have, I think Trevor is in there, and Trevor is able to capture any questions that you post there. He'll repost and make sure that they're brought into our conversation here. We're going to unpack some things, and then of course, right at 4:30, we'll take some time to do some Q&A as well. Sueling, what have you been seeing? What have you been hearing?
Well, I agree with everything James said, of course.
Wow, recorded that.
And we have the pleasure of working together, as he has been the leader of our talent council at the Board of Trade for the last couple of years. And I think obviously some emerging trends in the workforce. So obviously remote working is a big trend that employers are having to take into consideration, and really has impacted too the way our talent pool is looking at their options and opportunities. So now our employers, their competitors are worldwide, because you can hire anybody who's going to be working remotely. And then also we have an opportunity to access talent that might not otherwise be available to us. And so employers are not just having to attract people maybe to their company, or maybe even to our city or our country, but they have, they have to be looking at who are they competing against. And so this provides an opportunity and or a challenge depending on what kind of business or employer you are. Do you embrace changing perhaps your culture, perhaps your employee policies, perhaps your recruiting policies, in order to leverage these emerging trends? And how quickly are you able to do that? And how effectively are you able to do that? I think James is right. Culture was important before, and people are looking at that now alongside what their actual job is. But as James said, people are looking at how employers, how leaders, and how businesses have managed this pandemic. And it'll say a lot about how much trust they have in that employer, and whether or not they want to be a part of their team and support them. So the other one thing I'll say too is, when employers are looking at the employee base, there's been a real blurring of the work-life balance, and how people have been able to blend that and what they're willing to do. And so just overall, employers being in a position where they have to take into consideration a changing mindset among the workforce, for sure.
We are, it's been a season of change. And, there might be some on the call that hear the notion of we need to change or we need to adjust. And it's like, that's all I've been doing for the last, 12 months or so. And the reality is that it is still something that's needed. James, what would be some of those, what are some of the questions that employers can be asking themselves as they start to have to make these adjustments and look at their employee needs? What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about in the midst of, again, all that we're dealing with?
I mean, a lot of it starts with the customer need and your customer interaction. So if I have a retail presence, I still have to serve customers. Some of that may be virtual, some of it may be digital, some of that may be in person. So there's still how do we interact with our kind of key revenue stream, and then work backwards from there. So, what does this role, who does it interact with? What is the dynamic of that group that I need? I might need something different from a customer service group versus a design group versus a accounting group versus a technology group. So different parts of your business now can actually function independently and differently to one another, depending on your talent needs. I look at, Roddy, I think, was on the call, who represents a lot of the BIA, one of the BIAs where there's a lot of manufacturing businesses. Well, the reality is the machine can't run itself virtually. You can't run itself remotely. You still need to be there. You still need to get your programmable controls in place. You still need to get the work done. It doesn't mean the sales force for those organizations even have to be based in Ottawa. So there's a lot of questions about who are we interacting with, what are the interactions likely to be, and then how do we build a dynamic in that group that allows us to achieve our goals. With this shift in mindset, you might be positively or negatively impacting others already exist within your organization. You might put in place a condition of work that suits somebody that doesn't suit somebody else. And so now you've got to start thinking about culturally, what am I starting to build towards? Have you integrated those people who may be impacted by this hiring decision into the stakeholder process? Are they actually providing their insights, their thoughts, their perspective? If I'm redoing my org chart, what about my key employees? What do they think we could be doing to make us more effective as an organization? If this role is based locally versus remotely, what conditions am I going to put in place? If we're going to have a blend of both, do we move to a deliverable-based workforce rather than a time-based workforce? So how am I checking and putting balances in place to actually put controls on the work that we are asking people to get done, particularly if it's not done in a standard 9 to 5? So there's lots of questions. And to Sueling's point she made, there is opportunity in this right now, because if I had $100,000 to spend on my sales team, I could hire 2 people virtually, I could hire 1 locally. But if they're 2 remotely, am I relying on lead generation and marketing to stimulate customer activity versus locally where I'm buying access to customers through time-based relationships where somebody's worked for 20 years? So lots of questions you could ask, and I could give you a laundry list, but is how does it impact the people you already have, and what are you trying to build towards based on how your customers are going to procure your services, your products?
Sueling, what about you? I mean, Ottawa Board of Trade has certainly been on the forefront of trying to support the business community in Ottawa. You've done a lot of stuff. I know you're continuing to do some great work in doing that. So you're probably hearing from all kinds of different, really the whole range of industries within the Ottawa marketplace. What are some of the ways that they need to look at things differently in order to really be successful right now?
Well, the first thing is, and James alluded to it, it depends what kind of business you are, because this whole pandemic has created sort of the tale of 2 businesses, right? Many businesses are thriving in this environment, and some business are really having to look at their business model and how they're going to even survive, let alone grow. So every business, though, really needs to be looking at how are they going to move forward into the future, and how are they going to redefine or maybe transform their workforce in order to meet their strategic growth initiatives. And so I think that employers and business owners, they just need to be creative, look at what's being done in terms of best practices, and be willing to look at things differently than they have in the past.
Let's unpack that a little bit more, because and I'm going to open this up to both of you to jump in together, and but when you say that, Sueling, businesses need to be creative. What are some really practical ideas? What are some thoughts that we could suggest to those that are on this call, those that are listening to the call, ways to be creative in this marketplace to attract the right kind of talent? What can we do to help kind of promote our position?
I'll leave that to James, but I guess the main thing I was saying is it's not just be creative in how you're attracting people to your business, but you actually have to be creative in how you are doing your business, right? Yeah. So as an example, pre-COVID, what we knew is that the vast majority of businesses in Ottawa needed to amp up their digitization and their adoption of technology in order to compete in the global marketplace. So, and then what's happened in the last year, we've accelerated that probably 10 years in the last year. And so how are businesses adapting to technology and digitization and online marketing, and having savvy internal policies and systems, and so how they're functioning as a business, how they are, and one of the biggest things is how they're handling their finances. And so across Canada, 45% of businesses at the beginning of COVID said they couldn't even last 60 days with their current cash flow, right? And so one of the main things that has happened is businesses are starting to really look at how they're managing their finances as well. So I'm just saying how you run your business, the model that you use, the priorities within your organization all affects how you develop talent, because your workforce development really has to be aligned with what your growth strategy is overall.
Mm. Yeah, James.
I mean, here's the reality facing an Ottawa business. So we've had, well, the economy's shrunk by 5% GDP over the course of the last year. It's going to grow by at least 5% next year. So we're going to go out of what has been most businesses running about 90% capacity from where they were the prior year. We've got one of the tightest labor markets in the country. 25% of our workforce is over 55 years old, and right now. So we've got a whole slate of people who are financially secure, who have made a ton of money through investments through the capital markets in the course of the last 12 months. So have a position in luxury where they don't have to be working. We have a skills gap already. We've got students where we're losing 50% of our graduating students. And these are just current conditions that we're facing as a city. Now we're going to go into a growth mode as an economy where every single person in this call is going to be starting to still rob Peter to pay Paul. So we're basically going to be taking employees from each other unless we start thinking about ways that we can start putting in learning and development plans. We can start structuring mentorship. We've got to have mentors, mentees. The biggest issue I've seen with most companies during COVID is there's no learning and development done. We've all pulled back on that. We've pulled back on spend. I'm not sat next to Craig and saying to him, hey, Craig, have you ever done this before? Let me show you how we do that when a customer's dealing with that problem. Let me show you how we deal with that situation. That stopped. So no one's been taught to do new things in the course of the last year. And if you have, then kudos to you, because the vast majority haven't. So there's a huge amount of employees who are also looking at their employer thinking, well, nothing's really changed. Where am I going to go and do something new? So if you're not providing that opportunity, you already put yourself at risk. So your creativity is not just attracting the right people, it's looking at your key resources in your business and saying, who do I need to keep? Who am I going to build the next 5 years of success? Because we're going to have a boom economy. There's going to be tons of revenue opportunities. And if I have the right people, I am going to outperform my competitors, even if I have a subpar product. That is the wonderment of what we're facing over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. So there's a wonderful creativity to kind of put your arms around your best people now. I think government programming, Sueling, the amount of dollars the government's throwing at everything from the digital Main Street programs to training and development to newcomer hiring to graduate hiring is get on it now where the government's throwing money at it, take advantage of it and start lifting up some of those key people in your business and start filling from the bottom. Because if you need to go and hire an experienced worker in this city, you're paying through the nose for it. You might as well go and hire them outside of Ottawa. In the last year, 20 to 25% of all the placements we made in Ottawa are relocating people from outside. We don't believe you're getting fair value for a senior employee in the Ottawa marketplace right now. So that's what you're facing as a business owner. You can overpay for talent, or you can start developing it and you can start lifting those people up and you'll get some financial benefits to that as well. So that creativity also starts internally as well.
James, I'll send you $10 afterwards for the wonderful shameless self-promotion plug here, because we have seen this. Certainly Rhapsody and any of the Rhapsody coaches on the call will say one of the things that we've seen is a lot of organizations recognizing that there is grant money for things like training and development, and they've taken that, and we've been able to implement even some team training and given that opportunity for teams to feel that connection. And so you're absolutely right. The importance of that and the necessity of doing that is so critical. It's so important to do at this stage.
Just to add one point, so I'll just give you a very real near-time example. So we've never seen demand for talent so high. So we're very fortunate. We're one of the businesses that benefit from what COVID has presented. The amount of candidates we're seeing applying who are holding senior positions in organizations is scary. So we average about 100, 125 applications per position pre-COVID. We're over 250 to 300 now post-COVID.
Wow.
Most of those people are employed because we've only got 6.6% unemployment rate in this city, and that includes your hospitality and retail workers that are still not back and fully employed. So those people applying are holding jobs in your businesses. So there's going to be a very interesting 6 to 9 month period. It's going to be fine for us. We're going to be okay. But as business owners, you've got a huge risk there. You've got key people, I promise you right now, are considering their employment with you. And they're seriously considering it based on your actions and behaviors during COVID. How did you show up? You know, your best and worst of you has been seen by them in the last year, and they are considering what they're going to do. So we will typically see 20 to 25% of all people we target engage in a conversation right now. That's up from about 15% of people a year ago. So just put your arms around your good people and protect them.
Sueling, you're going to jump in.
Yeah, so when James, he said, they're looking at their work and the businesses and nothing's changed for a year, but nothing's changed in their life for a year either. And so what might have been satisfactory in their workplace is no longer tolerable. And we need to take that into consideration. Because you have to start, like you have to start looking at the whole person. So if before, 9 to 5, I was at the office, my work was so meaningful, my environment was so, but my life was great. But right now, my work and my life are so blended and nothing's happening anywhere. And I think it speaks probably, James, to the number of people willing to make a change in order to find that culture, that personal development, professional development, that whole piece.
Yeah, one of the biggest asks we get from candidates now is security within the offer. So the amount of people that are looking for severance policies or some kind of guaranteed bonuses, something that says downplay the risk for me to make a change as well. So they'll come to the table and talk to you. So they're willing to flirt a little bit, but get them to really hold your hand and go down the line a little bit with you. We're seeing a lot more kind of ask for security. So like, what is your financial performance? If you did lay people off or you reduced wages in any way, did you reverse it? Did you make people whole again? So it's okay if you actually reduce some compensation, but did you catch them up? So everyone was still where they needed to be for the year. Potential candidates asking those questions of the employers when they're coming in to see them. So just some things to think about. You might have year-end bonuses that may be due. And if you maybe have some catching up to do, it might be a good time to start thinking about that just to cover yourself as well.
Yeah, so good, so good. Listen, we've got just a few more minutes left on this call until we're gonna make that shift to the Q&A time, and we're really gonna invite people to jump in with their thoughts and all of that as they discuss this. Just quickly though, I've just Trev just sent me a quick message from a question that came in from the Facebook group. We keep hearing that there is a large shift in most businesses. The applicants are hearing this as well. They know there is a vast restructuring and big changes on the horizon. How are we as business owners giving ease of mind in this market to entice the talent, besides salary and holidays, to leave their longer careers and convincing them to start new careers in this climate? Big question. How would you summarize that in a quick little summary, James?
Paint a picture of the future you're building towards. Plain and simple. You don't have to have the specific answer, but you have to be able to say to them, 3 years from now, this is what we're going to be doing as a company. We can't give you a perfect journey, but this is where we're going. Give them that vision and they'll buy in and have a conversation with you.
It comes back to the basics. Be very clear on your vision, very clear on your mission, very clear on your values, and you will welcome people into your organization that align with those three things. It's amazing how business is business, and it comes back to that. I'm going to give you guys just a kind of a closing thought, and give you a second just to put some thought into it. And the question I'm going to ask is, what single action would you recommend that business leaders undertake today? But before you answer that, I do want to just say again, if I'm hiring, I'm bringing in Keynote Search. The way, and I've had
$10 is coming back to you, Rob.
I have the opportunity to have worked with James with a number of my coaching clients who have brought in hires through Keynote search, and absolutely have been amazed at the quality of people that they find. And I would not want to go through all that we are going through right now without the Ottawa Board of Trade and being a part of those organizations and networks that help strengthen, whose only goal is our success. And so to have the two of you on this call, so appreciated. And so those of you that are on the call, if you are not engaging in organizations like Keynote Search or the Ottawa Board of Trade, you really should be. All right, let me throw it over to maybe Sueling. I'll start with you, and then to James. Single action that you'd recommend to leaders.
Just one, eh? I think that in today's world, we just heard from Brett Wilson yesterday at an ESACS event, and he talked about the three pursuits that every entrepreneur should be looking at, and one of them, and the top one he said, was marketing. And when you're looking at marketing, not just your business, your services, and your products, what you need to be doing is building a brand as an employer. So in everything that you're doing, making sure that people understand what you said, you know, the mission, vision, values of the organization, and build it, and be conscious in everything you do of building your brand as an employer, as a great place to work, as a visionary, and as a team builder.
So good. Yeah, James.
I would come back to your point on that vision of what you're building towards, but look at the team you have in place right now. Who can you not afford to lose if you're going to achieve this goal as an organization, and put your arms around them immediately? Sit them down, ask them what's going well, what's not going well. You know, what could you do to keep them? What might cause them to consider a change? Make sure you know what your key people are doing and what they're thinking right now, because what's going to happen in the next 12 months is going to be predicated a lot by their engagement with you and your business. So put your arms around your key people.
Excellent. Great advice. Thank you, both of you. Appreciate it so much. Steve Osmond, who is our Rhapsody coach in Calgary. Steve, give a little bit of a wave. Steve is going to be part of our call next month on March 17th. Our topic is Rethinking Conflict. And so this fits in so well, because oftentimes why do employees leave? Because of the conflict that they're dealing with within an organization. If we can rethink how we approach conflict, how we approach, and see the value of productive conflict, healthy conflict, I think that's going to be just a phenomenal conversation. That's happening on March 17th. It originally was going to be during March break, but when Doug Ford heard that we were doing the webinar, he knew he needed to move March break. So they moved March break just so that we could have our webinar on March 17th. So, encourage everyone to join and be a part of that as well, because I think it's just going to be an absolutely excellent topic and conversation. I know some of you need to, it's 4:30, some of you may need to leave and to disengage from the call, and encourage you to do that if you need to do that. Thank you so much for being a part of it. But we are going to open it up now, and I want to just invite some of you that have some thoughts or comments, or if you have a specific question for one of our two guests here today, I would love to invite you to do that. So let's open it up. Let's some thoughts or comments from some of our attendees today. Not everyone at once. It gets too crowded and noisy when you all talk at the same time. Who is finding it a challenge to really kind of keep employees engaged and keep them and where you are worried about potentially losing some quality people? Who have got some? Who's been seeing that? Those of you that have your cameras live, right? Anyone dealing with that right now? Not going to ask you to actually talk about it because your employees might be watching this, but you're seeing some of those challenges. We've got a question I see Chris has put in here. Do you have any suggestions for bringing in new Canadians for labor work in construction? Very specific.
That's a big question, Chris. I was on a trades panel with Algonquin a couple of weeks ago, and obviously we've got a huge issue with, 35% of the students' volume is going through right now because of the restrictions due to COVID. So we know there's a huge challenge there. I would say there's an advocacy issue in play here that maybe we should be talking to Sueling about, is actually how we can drive more trade workers into the Ottawa marketplace, because it's going to affect us massively. I deal with a lot of construction real estate organizations. We have about 60, 70 clients, and they're all struggling with trade workers. So they've got a pipeline of work for 5 to 7 years. They just can't get the labor. So because it's a community issue, I truly believe maybe OBOT and actually OCA should come together and actually start doing some lobbying work to see whether or not there's actually an opportunity either at the Ontario Chamber level or actually at the Canadian Chamber level, because it's beyond an individual's ability to impact. I think that's a community initiative that needs to be undertaken.
Yeah, Sueling.
Just to share that trades trade shortage rather has been on the agenda of the Ontario Chamber for some time now, for many years. It's not an easy one to solve. I was at an event and we were talking about the importance and how great it is to get into trades, et cetera, et cetera. And then we went around the table and asked every one of them if they encouraged their kids to go into the trades, and not one would. So, you know, there's a few pieces at play, and but definitely on our agenda. But we need you're right, James, we should be looking at it from an Ottawa only perspective and what we can be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Trev, you wanted to jump in.
Well, just a thought. I mean, while it's easy to shoot holes in what's happening, part of me wonders, has there ever been more government support dollars available for business than there is right now? And, you know, there's gaps in areas that need to be addressed. And I know you two are looking at it very closely. And I just maybe like to ask your suggestion. What recommendation would you give for a business specifically? Say, here is a great program. It's here. They have money. It's powerful. It's effective. We don't know how long it's going to last. What would you recommend they take advantage of?
I mean, there's the ones that everyone, right, was able to take advantage of. So the CEBA funds and the wage subsidies, and then like we're running a program right now. So in terms of labor development, workplace integration has been identified as the #1 most effective strategy. Okay, so that's working with your PSIs on co-ops, et cetera, et cetera. So we're running a program right now where any business can apply for up to $7,500 for a student placement, and they can apply for as many as they want. So that, like, that's just one example. We have a program right now called the Recovery Activation Program, where businesses that, you know, pre-COVID would have paid upwards of $50,000 to have access to the resources to digitize their business are getting it for free. So there's lots of different programs out there, and at the Board of Trade, we'd be happy to refer you to them. But this is the time to take advantage of those. Yes, for sure. Can I just circle back on the last question too, because it wasn't just the access to a tradesperson that was there, but a newcomer to Canada. And that is another piece around talent that we all probably have room to grow in. And I know at the Board of Trade, we've definitely identified that is diversity and inclusion, and how our businesses are handling that and amping up in that area as well. So understanding different backgrounds and cultures and the way people work, and allowing for that, and in fact, creating cultures that attract that as well.
The opportunities are tremendous.
Tremendous.
Yeah, and it's knowing the direction. I know, James, thank you. You put your email address in the chat window. Maybe, Sueling, you could provide a contact info as well, just for those that are on the call if they want to grab the information and reach out directly. But there is so much that opportunity. Again, we are. Give us some. So I was teasing you earlier, James, that you were a kind of a doomsayer, right? Especially in the pre-call, there was all kinds of stuff. You talked about how, you know, is the government going to look at, do we really need to have all these people in Ottawa? There's just, you know, there's so much potential despair. We've got a couple minutes left on the call. Let's kind of end the call with some real hope. Give us a virtual hug. What can we look at? We know that we're here, where we are, and that there is all this stuff that needs to happen. If you had an employer, a business owner sitting in front of you, and I'm asking this to both of you, discouraged, kind of uncertain, just kind of going, I've lost some people, or the people I have, I've discovered are lousy. They don't know how to, they just haven't handled it. What would you say just to give them a bit of, to give them that hope or encouragement?
For me, this is still one of the best cities in North America to live in. Despite the increasing cost of living over the course of the next 5 years, anyone who buys a house in this city is going to do very, very well. We have still one of the most educated workforces on the planet. We have direct access to the northeast of the US. We have access to Montreal. We have access to Toronto. You don't have to live in Toronto. You don't have to live in the US by that means. We're still Ottawa has a ton going for it. If it can start looking beyond its borders and start realizing the major customer base, it's not just the federal government. So if you're a company, an employer that is open to whether it's joint ventures, expanding your supply chain, your product reach, if you're interested in leveraging opportunities south of the border, our labor force is 70% cheaper than employing them in the US based on the exchange. Sorry, 70% of the cost. So, I can sell services from Ottawa into the US and I'm delivering in Canadian cost. Best way to drive profitability for a company in Ottawa right now. Most businesses with digitization, everything else, there's huge opportunities here to leverage what is a very still high skilled workforce. And I believe we have access to a lot of markets that are typically ignored somewhat from the Ottawa perspective. So those are my thoughts. Sueling?
Those are great. Sueling?
I agree with everything James said.
Stop saying that. You don't.
Wow.
What I would say too, as working as an advocate and an economic partner on behalf of the private business sector, what I would say is that we have experienced in the last year an unprecedented level of collaboration among local stakeholders and all levels of government. And it took a pandemic to do it, but what it provides us is an opportunity to synthesize all of our efforts and our resources to create a competitive landscape in our city that will drive our recovery and support our business community. And so I'm excited about that. I think that's a chance almost for a reset in terms of how we work together, how we look at what our resources are, forcing us to articulate what our vision is and how we're going to rebound together and how we're going to support all of our community. That every one of us is interconnected, and that's something that we're not going to forget soon.
Love it. Thank you both. You've encouraged me. I feel like I've received a virtual hug now and I feel a little bit better. There is hope on the horizon. I think this really is, as much as a challenging time, a time of incredible opportunity for business leaders and for organizations. And sometimes we just need to remind ourselves of that, and that of what does lie ahead and how we can get there. So thank you both so much for being a part of this, for leading this conversation and the dialogue. Thank you to everyone who joined in and participated as a part of it. Again, encourage you to mark down the date. We'll be sending out some information. You'll get some notification. You'll get a summary of this call plus some promotional emails for the next call. If you are on our mailing list, you will receive an invite for it. And so we encourage you, if you're not on the mailing list, to reach out to Trevor. His email address you can see on the screen there. You can reach out to him as well, and he'll make sure that you're added to the list so that you get this information. So again, thank you all. I know many of you, this has been a busy week of reopening. I know for those of you in Calgary, you've been open for a bit longer. But again, we just wish you all the success over the next number of weeks as you begin to just see this next shift and wherever that goes. So thanks again, and we'll see you all in a month's time.